Hi, my name is Brianna Graglia, and my research topic was the effect of graphic organizer usage on students' Revolutionary War comprehension in a 4th grade classroom. The purpose of this study was to investigate social studies instruction in a 4th grade classroom, specifically with Revolutionary War. This will enhance previous research and provide various strategies to using graphic organizers in ways that will benefit teaching social studies as well as increasing students' comprehension levels. 3 graphic organizers were used throughout this unit. The Freyer model was used with vocabulary, the Venn diagram was used to compare and contrast, and the Instagram was used to describe a specific person. Comprehension was the students' understanding of the Revolutionary War unit, which was measured through the assessment of various exit tickets as well as a pretest and a post-test. Previous research that supports this study was done by Ermis in 2008, which addressed how graphic organizers offer a large potential to improve students' reading comprehension abilities. Another study done by Kim, Vaughn, and Wei in 2004 found a large benefit to graphic organizers that positively impacted comprehension of students with learning disabilities. Additionally, Giselman in 2008 found a pro to graphic organizers was they are a valuable tool for teaching difficult social studies vocabulary, but a con is that many students may think they are advanced if they had not encountered them in other grades. The research question for this study was how does the usage of graphic organizers impact students' content knowledge and comprehension levels in a 4th grade social studies classroom in Virginia. The participants of this class were from a 4th grade hybrid class. Some of the students in the whole sample also included virtual students, which is what the demographics will describe. The demographics of this class were 67.6% white students, 18.9% African American, 8.1% Hispanic, 2.7% Asian, and 2.7% that were 2 or more races but not Hispanic. This class also had some accommodations, and that included 21.6% of students with IEPs, 18.9% gifted students, 5.4% of students received reading resource, 5.4% of students had 504 behavior plans, and 2.7% of students were English language learners. This study had graphic organizers implemented into the SOL Virginia Studies 5A, B, C, and D, which discussed Virginia's role in the American Revolution. This was an action research study and data was collected through a pre-test, post-test, student work, and interviews. These were all analyzed to find the students' learning gain. On the left, you will see a Freyer model. This was the first graphic organizer integrated when the students had to break down a vocabulary word. In the blue circle in the middle, they would write the vocabulary word they chose. Top left corner, they would write the book definition that they just copied down from the board. And below that, they would break the definition into their own words to show their understanding. Next, in the top right corner, they would write examples or draw a picture. Some students, including the gifted kids, decided to do both. And then below, they would write a complete sentence using the word, which would show their literacy skills of writing a sentence as well as their understanding by being able to use the word in a sentence. Next was the graphic organizer they did in the middle of the unit. This was a Venn diagram that compared the Continental Army and the Great Britain side during the American Revolution. The students had to use the word bank at the bottom to drag and drop the groups of various Virginians into the Venn diagram with the category that they would belong in. This was the third and final organizer that the students used. It was an Instagram graphic organizer, which they related to by knowing what Instagram is like. The students picked a person from the unit, which was either George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Patrick Henry, James Armistead Lafayette, or the Marquis de Lafayette. They wrote their name in the first box. Then in the next box, they got to create a username for the person, whether it was their name or something that described them. They got to use creativity here. Then they would insert a profile picture for the person, and then they wrote a caption describing the person under their profile picture. Then they created hashtags that went along with the person and would also describe them. The students then took everything they organized in this slide and were able to move it into the Instagram template on the right. They were able to take all their thoughts that they knew from their notes as well as if they wanted to do additional research, and they were able to put it into an Instagram to display it in more of a graphical way. This was the unit plan that took place during this study, where I started on day 1 with a pretest, and I told the students this will count for nothing. This is just to see how much you might know about the American Revolution, so then at the end, we can see how much we learned. On day 1, the students also were introduced to the Freyer model, and they got to take some notes on new vocabulary as well as pick one word that they got to describe in deeper meaning. On day 2, they learned about why Parliament and the colonists disagreed, and then they took notes for this as well and did some quick checks as a class as well as exit tickets for that on day 3. Then on day 4, the students learned about Virginians' many roles during the Revolution and completed a Venn diagram on whose side people took. On day 5, the students reviewed these roles and started learning about 5 important people of the American Revolution. Then on day 6, they completed quick checks as a class and took the exit ticket number 2. On day 7, they began their Important People project and learned about the Battle of Yorktown and the end of the war. Then on day 8, the final day of the unit, the students finished their project. They also completed a brain dump as a class, a review questions, and a Kahoot before they were ready to take their district assessment, which served as their post-test. This slide shows the results of the students that had parent approval. These students were all from hybrid classes, whether they were hybrid A or hybrid B. Each student had a positive learning gain from their pre-test score to their post-test score. The largest learning gain was a 70% increase from female, that was student 11. These show the results of the whole class, including the virtual students that were either virtual group A or group B, as well as both hybrid classes. This shows it based on various subgroups and accommodations. The highest increase of progress was seen with the 504 behavioral students and the African American students. In the student interviews, they were conducted on 6 different students. 2 students that were high, 2 students that were in the middle on learning, and 2 students that were low. One of the low students had special ed accommodations and had an IEP plan. Something I found from interviewing the students is a lot of them liked the graphic organizers, and a majority of them thought it made it easier to learn. A theme I found was the students were actively engaged and enjoyed working with these graphic organizers, which increased their comprehension levels. The students also followed directions which allowed them to complete the graphic organizers correctly. So by being actively engaged and following directions, the students were able to have a better understanding and comprehension of the Revolutionary War. Some limitations to this study include the coronavirus pandemic that is happening, which impacted the time and scheduling of the students' learning. It affected the amount of instructional time as well as the students' schedules because they were only in school for 2 full days, with their other days being either off days on a weekend or the other weekdays would be asynchronous. In the future, I'd recommend to have the same format for the pre-test and post-test. They were different because the district assessment could only be taken once, which could have been a variable here. The first test that the students took, which was their pre-test, was taken on a Google form. And then their post-test was taken on Performance Matters. I'd also suggest to try this study with another grade or more diverse class to see if there are different results. Implications researchers could use are trying this study in a different subject, especially reading, since in reading students see things like Venn diagrams more often. So they are more familiar with these graphic organizers, and it might help them more in their reading comprehension levels in various passages or different stories. Overall, the results supported the goal and found that graphic organizer usage increased students' comprehension levels. Another reason why this would increase the students' comprehension levels is because they were enjoying what they were doing. They were actively engaged, and when they care more about what they are doing, they are going to remember more. And these are my references for the study. Thank you for listening.